The flow of meaning. My life experiences have led me to seeing meaning as a paradox. Paradox is two things that are opposing, seemingly therefore completely different, but both true. In fact, being human is kind of a paradox, as both the experience of this being of me, Gary, in time and space, and the animating spirit and force that moves through this body. But with meaning, back in my early 20s, I went through a program called Landmark Education. It was this series of trainings, very good stuff. The first one I went to was this 3-day immersive workshop called the Forum. At the end of the Forum, I was left with one singular thought: the world is empty and meaningless. Now, there was a lot of meaning inside of that thought. It comes from the idea that we as people are meaning-making machines, that we are constantly projecting meaning onto all sorts of things, everything all around. It's this whole, we have a little bit of information, then we make up a story to fill in the rest and live out of that meaning. And this was really good for me at that time because in my early 20s, just a couple years ago, I had learned at 18 years old, well, from that time, a couple years ago, yeah, I learned I had scoliosis and I couldn't go into the military, didn't have the money for college. Doctors told me that I would have a shortened lifespan and there was nothing they could do. I was too old. And I was mad at my parents for letting that happen, for never having gotten me checked when I was younger or discovering it, even though I complained. Granted, I was a very dramatic child, so my complaints were out there and not always accurate. But I had all this meaning. I had meaning about the meaning of it, like that they didn't care for me or I wasn't good enough or all kinds of stuff. And through letting go of projecting meaning, I found freedom, understanding, compassion, and I healed something that was there. And it was a lot easier to go through life just recognizing the isness of it all. You just are the way you are, doing the best you can. It doesn't have to mean anything about you or me. And it was beautiful. But then years later, I went to the School of Metaphysics and I started learning dream interpretation and this universal language of mind that's all symbols. And all of these symbols mean something, metaphors. It's this communication from the inner subconscious and the soul perspective to the outer conscious mind, the human. And as these symbols show up in this story format and unfold, there's a flow of meaning underneath of what's being communicated for the conscious mind, for the human to understand about its own experience and our growth, our evolution, what the soul wants the being, the human, to know. And then later on, as I started learning about deeper spirituality, holographic reality, understanding that my I am presence is not actually something out here that's my I am presence. I am presence. And that just like when we're in a dream, it seems so real when you're in it. And then you wake up. And conscious mind's like, whew, that was just a dream. And what if our life experience was like that from the perspective of the eternal soul? It seems so real when you're in it, when you're in the life, when you're in a body, all the emotion, all the drama, all the everything. And so if spirit, essence, presence, being is all that is everywhere, is constantly in relationship and communication with itself, from me to you and you to everything else, even to the song on the radio. You ever had the perfect song play at the right time and you could swear that was spirit talking to you through that song? That's the meaning that is everywhere, all the time. And sometimes we're aware enough to perceive it. God is always here, speaking with us, amongst us, in all of creation. And only when we don't recognize that, when we cut ourselves off from meaning, do we get into the job of making up meaning and putting it out on everything else instead of being still enough to receive what's already there.